How to record your video and audio for a podcast. You know, there are tons of ways to record this. And of course, the audio side is the simplest. But again, I've mentioned this several times before in several other videos. Start recording everything in video. Start in video, because that gives you so many options and you can go in so many different directions from there. Not just a YouTube channel and a podcast, but you've got all your social media as well. It sets you up beautifully for everything. So we're not only going to go over audio settings, but we're going to go over camera settings as well. By the end of this video, you're going to know some of the camera settings that you can affect right now, a bunch of the audio settings that you can set up right now, and making all of those completely and totally available to you for any and all type of social media that you need to use in the future to promote your videos. And now all of a sudden, we're talking about a podcast, right? And now you've got your YouTube channel ready to go. How did that happen? Let's get started. Hi, I'm Nick Nettarella with AdWise Creative. You know, some of the things that separate the men from the boys is being able to make those tiny adjustments in your camera, and that will change the world when it comes to making your videos look really, really professional. A couple things that you can do right off the bat, even in your cell phone. Be sure to check your smartphone. You may even have these adjustments in your smartphone. Two places to look. Number one, call up your camera and switch to video, and then you might have some adjustments right there in the camera app. Another place to look for these would be, go back to your home screen, start from the very beginning, okay? And you're gonna go to Settings, and then click on Apps, find your camera app, and click on that inside the app settings, not inside the app, but inside the app settings, you may find a few of these. And these are just going to work to your advantage to give you a much higher quality. And the reason why you want to start with high quality is because there's a lot of data when it comes to lots of ones and zeros that are going to be generated in something like this. Here's the trick. If you start with high quality, you can always render it down to or mix down to a lesser quality. I'm not saying bad quality, I'm saying a lesser quality. Very few of these actually handle 4K. Very few of these places to play it back handle 4K. They want to see 1080p or high definition, HD. They want to see that. You can start in 4K and mix down to HD. You can start in 4K and mix down to 1080p. What you can't do is start in, say, HD or 1080p and mix up to 4K. You're actually inventing data. And what becomes really apparent is, follow me here, in the audio world, okay? This is called Cascading Codex. What happens is somebody will, let's say they'll record in WAV. WAV is a lossless form of data. WAV is one of the forms of recordings that has the most data involved. I deal with 60-second radio commercials all the time. When you're done with a 60-second radio commercial, chances are it's about 10 megabytes, okay? If I switch that and convert it to an MP3, it's gonna be about 1.2 to 1.4 megabytes. Wow. That's 10% of the data, a little over 10%, 12% or so. Now here's the trick, and this is where it'll prove the point. When you take that MP3 and mix it back into a wave, if you convert it back into a wave, it's only 6.2 megabytes. All that data from 10 down to MP3 and then back to wave only brings you to 6. All of this data is gone. You cannot recreate it. When you made it into the MP3, that was essentially erased, condensed, compressed. It was squashed into oblivion, quite frankly. And so when you try to mix it back from MP3 to WAV, you don't get your 10 megs back. You only get 6. And then you mix down to an MP3 and it's even smaller. And then you mix back to a WAV and it's even smaller still. And it just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. You never get back to your original WAV side, and you never get back to your first MP3 mix down size ever again. The data keeps getting lost and lost and lost. So you can always come down a step, but you can never mix up a step. So start in the highest setting you can. And a lot of these cameras, a lot of these smartphones, you can actually record in 4K. A lot of them, most of them, you can definitely start out in HD or 1080p. If you can start in 4K, start in 4K. Yes, it's going to make your files larger, but you want that data so you can play with it and mix it down and still have a great looking quality at 1080p. Make sense? Okay. Wasn't that strenuous in math simply because I'm not that good at math. But I can follow that, so I hope you could too. A couple camera settings besides the 4K. If you can start out, if you can set it to 30 frames per second or 30 FPS. Again, a lot of places are going to take 24 frames per second. But on the remote chance that you do find a 30 frame per second distribution channel and you've recorded in 24, you can't mix up from 24 to 30. You're inventing data that doesn't exist. So if you can start at 30 and you want to stay at 30, great. You want to start at 30 and mix down to 24, you can do that. No problem. So 4K, 30 frames per second, start there. One of the other settings you're going to want to go with is your depth of field. And the way the best example I can give you from depth of field is right here, right now. Look at this screen. Notice how I'm in focus and my background is kind of blurred out. That's what you want. That way the focus is on you, the subject. You are doing the talking and we're not being distracted by what's going on in the background. We can see there is a background and probably looks nice and it's really good and, oh, that's kind of homey, all right. But it's not going to be grabbing your eye. Once you see that it's out of focus, you're going to gravitate immediately towards me, or in the case of your videos, towards you. So set that depth of field so the background is blurred. For your lighting, one little trick that you can use is with one light bulb. If there's one light that you can use, and you might even be able to do this with a three-way light from your living room, set it off to the side. And I mean about eye height, maybe forehead height at the most, and you don't want it in front of you, and you don't want it like behind you. There's going to be a point where you're going to see that your nose is casting a shadow over your cheek, and then your cheek, and then there's a high point in your cheek that will be lit up, and then the shadows will take over again. You'll notice right here under your eye, between those shadows, will be an upside down triangle. That is called the Rembrandt effect, or the Rembrandt lighting technique. If you just take a second, go Google Rembrandt portraits, you'll see that little triangle of light on one side of the face all the time. And you'll notice that the shadow is almost straight across. Almost. He's a little bit up so it comes down just a touch, but it's almost straight across. So if you want to sit in a chair and put a lamp right next to you, it's a very, very stunning effect. Really cool cinematic effect. And you did it with one light bulb. It's really kind of cool. There are other things you can do with your lighting with a 3-light effect. Put one about 45 degrees to your right, and that'll be your main light. Put another one 45 degrees to your left, make it about relatively half, and I put that in air quotes, okay? So from 1 to 100, this could be at 60, this one's probably gonna be at 30. That one's at 90, this one's at 45, roughly. Something like that. What you're looking for is you want a little bit of shadow coming from this side, and then this light is gonna soften that shadow. It's not gonna be so bright that it erases the shadow, but you don't want a straight line shadow cutting across your face. And then what you can do is take a third one, put it behind you. Yeah, you see that one right there? There's this little halo effect I got going over my shoulder and my head. You've got your key light that produces the side that you want to see. You've got your fill light because it's kind of filling in the shadow just a little bit. And then you've got your rim light, which gives you that edge look, that rim type look. And that actually gives you a little bit more depth. It separates you from the background to kind of make the room look a little longer, a little bigger, and it makes you stand out a little bit more. So those two simple effects with 1 or 3 lights, very easy to achieve, very easy to play with. In fact, what I really like is there's some lights you can get for very, very inexpensively, and you can run them from your phone. There's an app that goes with it. You can change color, you can adjust the intensity, and all that can be done from your phone. So is anything that I've talked about so far, would you like to see a deep dive on? Or what are you doing? What are you doing for lights? Give us a little diagram or whatever, or make a comment down below. I want to see what you're doing for lights. Let us know, because we all can learn from each other. So I want to see what you're doing too. When it comes to recording your episodes, be sure you're going to have a primary place to record. Me, I got this little lavalier right here, okay? Second of all, you're going to want at least one, if not two, backups. If something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong in the audio. I was recording earlier today, and it turns out one of the backups just shut off. Fortunately, the primary was still going, and it's nice and clear, but it is nice to know that if the situations were reversed, my primary would be off, and it's the backup that was working. That's why you have them. And it seems for no reason it just shut off. Wasn't a power issue, wasn't anything. It just, okay, I'm done. It just stopped. So if you have at least one backup, and then another thing you might want to do is put a shotgun mic on top of the camera. So I've got this one, that's my primary recording. I don't know if you can see my backup. It is literally just outside the screen here. And then if you put a shotgun mic on top of the camera, hopefully, you've got all your bases covered. When you set your levels, make sure they're between -10 and -5. You're going to want a little room to make adjustments, but you also want to be loud enough to be heard. You want enough headroom so you can make adjustments, but you don't want to be too loud that if you get loud or boisterous, that all of a sudden it just blows the levels off the top and it sounds distorted and overblown. So you want to have a little room so you can make those bigger, louder sections. For your audio files, there are several little settings in there that you can set depending on the situation. First of all, and this may blow your mind, record in mono. You cannot speak in stereo. You just can't, okay? And in fact, when it comes to vocals, if you record in stereo, what you've done is you've given it a 2-channel mono signal, because the right and the left are going to be identical. Stereo is an effect that certain things, certain settings are going to be different from channel to channel. When it comes to mono, when it comes to your voice, you can't do 2 different settings, 2 different sounds with your voice. Okay? So mono is just fine, and it'll cover both channels. And for your bitrate, you want 192K or higher, which is 192,000. Some places will even call for 320 kbps. I think that's overkill. That's just me, but whatever. You got to go with what they're demanding, so be sure to record it at their settings the way they want it. And finally, when you do record in a WAV format. So when you save the file, it's, this recording such day, blah, 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 dot WAV. Make sure it's WAV. That is a lossless format, and you don't have to worry about inventing data or deleting data later on by accident. Going from WAV down to MP3, that's a different story. MP3 is a loss format. WAV is a lossless format, so you've got all your data that you possibly need. So between those 2 settings, between your camera settings and your audio settings, you've just really boosted things to start your editing at a really good, solid foundation. So now that you've gotten your video and your audio, A, recorded, B, produced, you've got YouTube episodes and podcast episodes, you are ready to go. Now you got to promote them. That's an even easier step. You've already recorded everything. You've already edited everything. Now how do you turn that stuff into promotional materials? I've got a free link for you down below. Get access to the video. It's a video about 8 or 10 minutes long on how to turn your content into smaller promotional segments. It's called S&D, Slice and Dice. Click on that link below and get access to it right now for free. I'm Nick Natarella. Thank you for watching.